Kenneth, glad to have you on here. And one of the things maybe we can start out with was you're somewhat of a pioneer in the industry. Back in 97, you were set up to the point where you were actually personally emailing Jeff Bezos and asking for advice.
Yes.
I mean, the CEO, the founder of Amazon, and you were back in 97 email conversations with us. Let's get back into those old times and then kind of go through and talk about what you're doing now to grow businesses and everything like that.
Right. Well, at those early stages, there were no tools. There was no nothing. The internet was the Wild West, which was awesome because there were no rules, uh, and unfortunately, people find ways to take negative advantage of that. So spam was born somewhere around then.
Yeah.
I remember some of the battles that went on surrounding that. But at the beginning, when I went out, when I figured out that I could scrape websites for email addresses, I thought this is amazing. And I would email people and they'd be like, "How did you find me? This is so fantastic!"
Thanks
Because
for sending me an email.
exactly. So and I started an affiliate program back then. I mean, when there were hardly such things as affiliate programs, and people were like, "Oh, so thank you so much for inviting me to your affiliate program. This is fantastic."
Oh man, things have definitely done a 180 since, haven't they?
Well, yeah. It's changed inside out several times since then. But it's interesting. The people that had the right intent, they survived these changes,
Hmm.
and the people that had less than pristine intent, they get shaken out. And people complain about stuff that happens. Oh, Google's Penguin update and their Panda update, and they're out to get me. It's like they're not out to get you. You're just not on the right side of ethics.
Yep, absolutely. So tell us about those early days. What lessons did you learn, and how did you grow a business back then?
Okay. Well, I think this would apply whether you're doing business online or off, but at the time when there was just green fields and blue skies and white boards, you have to create some structure. You have to put a stake in the ground and say, okay, I'm gonna stick to these particular rules, and it's not about these are the right rules. It's just these are some things that I'm gonna do so that I don't have to rethink this every day. Because you just don't have time to reinvent the wheel every single day. And so you make certain commitments to certain paths, and you don't know how they're going to come out, and sometimes you choose correctly and sometimes you don't, and you have to backtrack. But like for instance, if somebody back then had to choose what programming platform they wanted to use, there were a few choices. Well, which way are you going to go? And a long time ago I went in the PHP route. Well, Ruby on Rails popped up after that, which is fantastic. But now, big commitment to PHP. Do I still stick with that, or do I switch to Ruby on Rails? For somebody that was starting off brand new in that moment, I would have said absolutely go with Ruby. For somebody that had a lot of legacy with PHP, I would have said absolutely stay with PHP.
Hmm.
So we have to recognize these things are. It's not about the right or the wrong answer. It's about the practical answer.
Okay, so you mentioned structure, and you're looking at it from the long-term perspective.
Right.
And what I admire is hard work. That's the underlying tone. Like
Yes.
longevity. And it's like showing up to work and working. It's not just, oh, push button magic pill. So what was some of
Yeah.
the structure, like the hard work, the concrete stuff you put in place?
Okay. Well, it begins with you have to recognize fundamentally, who am I? What do I want out of this? What's going to work for me here? It's not, and this is different than what am I good at. It's about how will this business feed me. If you don't create your business in such a way that every day, even when it's hard, even when things are going wrong, even when people are yelling at you, that you're still willing to do it, you won't survive. And it won't matter that you're good at something if you hate doing it. And if the business is not ultimately serving you, feeding your soul, you're gonna quit. So that's the absolute baseline foundational thing, and so many people miss that. They come up with I got a great idea. There's this thing I think it'll really work. I think the marketplace is calling for it. Yeah, and it doesn't serve you personally. you won't survive. You
What do
won't
you mean
survive.
by serving you personally? Can you get
Well,
deep into that?
yeah, sure. Each of us have each of us as humans have certain basic needs, and we all have these basic needs, but our mix is different. So for some people, they're going to need this thing more than that thing. And you gotta determine what is it about me. What do I personally really need to make to feel satisfied with what I'm doing? Because obviously we want to make money in business. I mean, that's a given. But if you hate yourself for making that money, it's not gonna work out for you. Or it's gonna wreck your health. It's gonna wreck your relationships, and all that stuff ties back into the business. If you're in battles at home, it's going to show up in your business. And if you're unhealthy, if you're not sleeping well, if you know you're it's going to show up in your business. And so those things have to be served at the same time. And I think what happens is people try to reduce things down beyond the irreducible. They try to say, what's the one thing I should do? But there isn't the one thing you should do. There's the three things you should do, and it can't be any less, or the five things you should do. I mean, and again, it's different from person to person.
Okay. So you're talking one about showing up.
Mhm.
Are you getting into the follow your passion, or are you just saying no? Show up, do the hard work, and make sure that it's in line with certain outcomes you want. What are you talking about?
Yeah, passion is certainly a factor, but it's a factor for a certain group of people. Not everybody actually is that motivated by passion. Now, when you talk about in the space of people that are running online businesses or doing internet marketing, uh, there is a certain subgenre of person that they're very achievement oriented and they're very accomplishment oriented. Now, those people, passion is going to really matter to. But there are other folks that isn't their core way of looking at the world, and they might be in it for a way of building community, or they might be in it for creating structure in a chaotic world. And for those people, they're gonna passion is going to be the hot button for them, but there will be other hot buttons for them. And once those things are uncovered, then you can make sure that you serve them. This works in two directions too. First, you work on yourself. What are the things that really work for me? And then you have to turn your attention outward and say, okay, what works for the marketplace? What works for the people that I can hire, whether I'm employing them or contracting them? What works for my prospects? What works for my clients or customers? And you will find out there are the things that you can do effectively that maybe somebody else can't, and vice versa. You know, uh, for instance, there are some people that are just very powerful. That's their presence. Well, they ought to use that for good. There are other people that they're more about prestige. They're about having high standards, and and those two people may not be able to swap those things. If they tried to to swap those characteristics, they might not do it very well. So you got to do what you do well, not just model somebody because they're succeeding. You got to model somebody that's got similarities to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can look out there and say, "Oh man, Tony Robbins, he's amazing. I want to be just like him." Well, if you're not just like him, you can't be just like him. Now, if you're Oprah, you ought to be Oprah. But there are other people that have different characteristics and different qualities, and we have to go to our strengths. Because if we're trying to backfill with things that aren't our strengths, it doesn't work out well.
I totally agree. Um, let's do this. If you can tell me what your strengths are and what drives you, and then get into stories.
Okay.
Now, it won't be, our listeners won't be able to emulate everything, and not
Right.
everyone's the same. However, there's going to be foundational principles that they can pull out and they can say, okay, yeah, I could apply this or I could apply that.
Hmm.
So tell us a
Well,
little bit about you.
okay. So there are a few characteristics that I possess that work really well for me. One is I have pristine clarity. I look at a situation and I see what's there, and it's very straightforward for me. I'm not working at it. I'm not trying. It's just how it is. I'm able to have no filter. Another thing about me is that I am somewhat rebellious. And I don't mean rebellious as in anarchist, want to burn the world down, but more along the lines of creativity, and that I am not afraid to say, why don't we do it a different way? Or why don't we try this thing that's never been done? And I'm not risk averse. So I'm not foolhardy, but I am not afraid to assess a risk and say, yeah, that's worth it. Let's run that way and see what happens. And I've learned in my own experience then when you have lived a long time being able to accept risks, you build in structure to make sure that risk can't destroy you. You make sure that this isn't the risk that finally kills me. you know,
Yeah.
you know, it, and you measure the risk and the reward. You see it for what it is. You don't just. I keep hearing people do this where they go, "Oh, if only this one thing happens, it'll be fantastic." Yeah, but the likelihood of it happening is so low that it's not worth the trade-off. And they get focused on that. And you say, you know what? Pick something that has a more likely positive outcome, even if that outcome isn't as great, and get it done so that you have the bandwidth, you have the resources to be able to weather going after the big kill.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree with that. So the clarity in rebellious nature, or I should say, ability to weather the storm through
Yeah,
risk or whatever else it may be.
yeah, exactly.
Can you give some stories of how that is, how you've applied that to your business and what kind of results have happened?
Okay. Okay, let's see here.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no,
But
it's
I like
fine.
to get, I
I
like to
got
get
lots of
deep.
stories though.
Yeah.
Well, back in the day, and I mean, this is my first business, right? I grew up in Wisconsin.
Okay.
In Wisconsin, there are two things that are very important: cheese and beer.
There you go.
Okay, and there are taverns everywhere. I mean, it's not like the rest of the world.
Okay.
There are lots and lots of taverns. And I figured out early on that there was this great thing that had just hit the market called string cheese,
Okay.
and it was mild, it was salty, and if you packaged it in individual packages, it was good with a beer. I thought, huh. So I started packaging and selling string cheese to bars. They could sell off the back of the bar like they sold peanuts or they sold potato chips. They could also sell string cheese. So it just wasn't being done. And I was 18 years old. Back at that time in Wisconsin, 18 was the drinking age, so I could go into bars,
Okay.
which was crazy because when I was 18, I looked like I was about 14. So I knew every bar in the whole Milwaukee area. I had been everywhere, right? And I learned early on that big companies can beat the tar out of you. Because I went out there with a great product, but not great packaging, not great signage, and it was fantastic for a while. And then one of the big cheese companies figured it out, and they put out a good enough product with better packaging and better product, and destroyed me in 2 months. And it was over. And I mean, I learned this huge lesson from that. Now, that was a point where I had this. I looked at myself and I thought I took a big risk, and I took a big risk, and I didn't realize how much risk I took at the time because I was a neophyte. I was inexperienced. I was naive, and I lost thousands of dollars. And I was just a blue collar kid, and thousands of dollars at that time was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I could have just laid down and died. I could have said, "Well, that's it. I guess I better just go get a job with the company like everybody else does, and suck it up until they give me the gold watch in 40 years." But I didn't. I looked at it and said, "Well, I see where I made my mistake. I'm not going to make that mistake again, and I'm not going to misunderstand the competition. I am not going to undervalue marketing." And so I watched for other opportunities, and other opportunities did arise, and they've kept arising ever since.
Okay, that's good. That's a really good story. Let's fast forward to what you're doing to grow your business now, since you've got a lot of these life lessons.
hmm Okay, well, one thing that I have noticed is, well, you got to keep current. You just can't do what you used to work. Because I could look back and say, I've got experience. I could do these things I've done in the past. But especially in the online world, things are moving. So you have to be present to what's going on right now. I was very active in article marketing at one point. In fact, was probably one of the biggest players in article marketing. And it was fantastic. And we made millions of dollars. And I watched people go from no presence on Google to, top of the charts, boom, 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 over and over and over and over again because of what we did with article marketing. And then it changed.
Hmm.
Now I could have clung to that and said, oh, Google, they're evil. Why did they do this? Well, they did what they did for the reasons that they did it.
Hmm.
And so you move to what is current, and all the time, I, what I found with article marketing, I knew what I was doing was with good intent, but I saw a lot of our customers, their intent was not good. They were spamming the internet, and we were facilitating that. So I can't blame Google for the approach that they took. So the same thing then happens after that. What do you do with email? What do you do with Facebook? What do you do with Google Ads? What do you do uh, with with ad networks? And what do you do with retargeting and all the rest of these things? There's these great ideas, and I just keep looking at everything and saying, what's the way I can approach this with the best possible intent and use it for the time that it's useful, and not have any attachment to it. Because when you get worried, I became an expert at PPC, I should stick to it. Well, stick to it as long as it's working.
Hmm.
But if it stops working, and folks, it may stop working at some point, then you have to be open to learning the next thing.
Do you feel like that window of trends or things working is shrinking? So what I mean by that is um, article marketing worked for a fairly long period of time.
Hmm.
And then now you talk social media, video marketing, and press releases, and the list goes on and on and on.
Right.
But to me, it seems like the actual longevity of a certain segment, the time frame is shrinking.
Yeah, I think you could make a case for that, and this is part of what bothers people because the ramp up time is the same, whether it's going to last for months or it's going to last for years.
Hmm.
But that's how it is. And one thing that is improved, back in the day, there were no tools, there was no nothing. And so you had to create everything from scratch. Now you can pretty much plug into existing tools, or somebody will create a tool to help you along the way. Now, if your forte is to create those tools, well, great, go out and create those tools. Do it fast. Take advantage of it strike while the iron is hot. But if not, if something is brand spanking new, you might want to hesitate a hot second and let somebody develop some tools. Like, for instance, Google Hangouts is becoming very popular lately.
Hmm.
And now there are several tools on the market that you can use to help facilitate using Google Hangouts for doing webinars. Well, okay, just 6 months ago, that wasn't the case. And it was a little early. Now, there are some people that have established themselves, they've staked a claim in that space, and great, good for them. For others of us, I don't want to stake a claim in that space. I don't mind using their tools, though, and I'll use their tools until the next thing comes along. And sometimes I will look at it and go, wow, I want to stake my claim in this space, and I do. But other times, I don't.
Okay, so what makes you want to stake your claim in a certain space?
Ah, okay, well, again, it comes back to does it serve my personal needs? Is the
Hmm.
first thing I look at. The second thing is, can I create a compelling case for other people that I will solve their needs, and it goes from there. And I've done a lot of development stuff over the years, and I've in a lot of different programming languages, which is another metaphor for this. I've learned like 16 programming
Oh
languages
man.
over the years, and every time be like, okay, I now know a language to do anything, and then something pops up and go, oh man, here we go again. And I finally realized one day that, you know what, I don't want to be a programmer anymore. I There's kids coming out of school that know the hottest new language better than I do, and why should I reinvent that wheel? And I have something they don't have. I know how to manage this project,
Yep.
and they love to have that direction. So I go that route with it. But the same thing is true of these other metaphors. I can start a business and it will succeed. I just cracked the code. I know how it works now because I've done it and failed. I've done it and sold it. I've done it and had it run its course. I've done it and kept it, and I just know how to do that now. And I woke up one day going, well, what do I want to do now? Do I want to start another company? And I realized there's some great voices out there in the world that are talking about how to succeed as entrepreneurs, and I love these people, and they're doing great work, and they're helping a lot of people, and people should listen to them. But there was stuff I wasn't hearing anyone say, and then I realized that's because I'm the guy that should be saying it.
Okay.
So I shifted my focus so that I could be in that mentoring role, that coaching role, rather than creating another software business or another application business, and it's more exciting for me. So it's something that I'm having a great time with, and this is the nature of the world too. My parents grew up in a world where they got a job with the company and they stayed there till they retired. That changed in my lifetime, and it's gone. And in your lifetime, you've never even seen it.
Yeah, definitely
So
not.
you got to reinvent yourself as you go along, and so you got to get comfortable with the reinvention model, and I am, and now I'm sharing that model with other people so that they can be comfortable with it.
So I want to cover two things that you mentioned. One, the confidence that you have. I've started a business. I've had it run its course. I've sold it. I've failed. You've learned through the entire process. And then two, how you've transitioned over to being a mentor, a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go into the confidence that you have of, you know what, I've learned how this game works. What is it that differentiates you from the people that are skeptical, that say, I really hope that I can make this work?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. Confidence is something that I have always had, even when I had no experience. So I don't know that confidence itself is necessarily a transferable skill.
I don't know. I don't think it is. I guess what, maybe confidence isn't the thing I'm going for. I'm looking to see, like, what foundational pieces have you put in place? So, like, for example, you and I talked about my guitars.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I have played in so many bars and concert halls, and I've had music on the radio and blah blah blah. And I know that at any time, if needed, I can pick those up and play.
Right.
I've got a certain skill set. Like I have grinded it out. I have had my fingers bleed. So what have you done to have your fingers bleed that you now have that confidence that you're like, I've put in the hard work?
Well, this is one of those things about the progression of our needs. Some people never change about that, but some of us are on a path of change. And I learned early on that I was just a sponge. I wanted to know everything about everything. And I read and I read and I read and I studied and I just could not get enough until one day I kind of felt like, I'm full. I need to process the stuff that's already in here. And I stayed in that state for years where it's like, I don't tell me anything new. I can't take one more piece of data, and then it evened out for me. So I think for a lot of people, they're seeking information, and sometimes we get on people and saying, they're seminar junkies, or they buy every new ebook, or they buy every business book that comes out, or whatever. And yeah, it's because they're seeking enough information. Well, get that information. I say information, it's more data. Mm-hmm. Get that data, turn it into information, into something useful. Pick out some things you can use, and don't just cherry pick. This is the thing I think people really do wrong. They go look for somebody that succeeded, and they go, I'm going to model that person. And even if they're not a perfect match, I mean, it's still not a bad idea to model somebody who's got a working system. But they don't model them. What they do is they cherry pick the things they do, and what they do is they pick the easiest things that person does. Mm-hmm. And then they look at another person as a model, and they pick the easiest things, and they cobble that all together, and they think they have a system. They don't have a system. That isn't a system, because you probably left out the key, most important things that each of them are doing, because they're hard, because they take effort, because you have to turn your brain on, because you got to take chances. That's what works, and that's how you get confidence, when you step into that and you just go, you know what, I'm going to leave it all on the field. That's how you find out.
Okay, that's hard work. I like that. No, that's what it should be. It really should be hard work. But if let's go down another layer a little bit deeper, which you're talking about habits. Mm-hmm. So, and discipline. So let's talk about the discipline that you're speaking of. Because you specifically said that a person could pick the easy things, or they could go through and focus on the hard and lay everything on the table.
Right.
So let's get into that.
All right. I want to differentiate a little bit from how you're describing it. I don't disagree with what you're saying. It's not so much that it's hard as in, I'm going to have to suffer. but it's just more demanding. It's you're going to have to put more of yourself in it. Why not fully be yourself? Why not fully engage? It's you get you get the runner's high when you do that. The same thing happens in intellectual efforts. The same thing happens in emotional efforts. If you fully invest in it, if you fully play it, you get the most out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's when we go to the gym and you really worked out hard, you feel better. Maybe in that moment, just you're lifting 5 more pounds than you wish you were lifting, it doesn't feel great. But after you set that weight back on the rack, you're going, yeah, man, I hit it. And the same thing happens with this other stuff, and you get addicted to that outcome. You like that outcome, and you will stop suffering. Yeah, it's pain, but it's not suffering.
Okay. So it's doing whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And it's just the runner's wall, in marathons. It's pushing through the runner's wall.
Yeah.
Or whatever other metaphor we could come up with.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, if they've never had that experience, all it sounds like is it sounds awful. It just sounds like suffering. And I like I say, I'd like to differentiate between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. You're going to have pain in your life. That's just how it is. But the meaning that you give the pain makes all the difference. No one ever has to suffer, ever. I don't care what's going on in your world. Suffering is optional. Suffering is a choice.
Why is that? And I have a mindset on that as well, but I want to hear yours.
Okay. Because it comes down to meaning. This is something I figured out as a child.
Okay.
When that pain didn't hurt that much. It came down to, we've all seen this, a little kid falls down, looks around to see if mommy is watching. When he sees mommy's watching, then they start crying, right? Because now, it's a mechanism to get some attention. It's a mechanism to get some love. But you will find that pain isn't actually that bad. The things that we talk about that you need self-discipline for, it's not actually that bad if you don't make all these associations with it. Like, oh, this is so awful. I hate this. Why do I have to do this? Nobody else has to do this stuff but me. All of that's all a story. It's not the truth.
So to me, what I learned years ago was that suffering is the future, and it's a future of fear, and it's an illusion. It's not real.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have the choice because it hasn't even happened yet.
Exactly.
I talk with people and they're like, oh, I would do this business, but then my family would hate me because I wouldn't have any time with them. It's like, get off your ass and start doing it. You know what I mean? It's like, work now. And people realize it's not as hard. When you get in and you get your hands dirty, it's like there's it's like a medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So as we switch gears, you've talked about being a coach, a mentor.
Yes.
Is that a way for you to almost be like how a parent takes joy in seeing their kids grow? Is that a payoff to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I have adult children, so I've been that route too. So the comparison is interesting because I'm dealing with adults that
act like children.
Sometimes, but a lot of them, they're not. They're actually they're being really professional, and the people that I work with, they're pros. They're good at what they do, and yet they've hit some kind of wall. They've hit some kind of plateau. And they're like, you know what? I'm not doing things wrong. I'm doing the stuff everybody's told me to do. I have outsourced. I have delegated. I have properly budgeted. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. How come I'm stuck on this plateau? And so I love getting people off their plateaus. It's amazing.
Let's talk about that because that's a different type of person. So let's talk about the person that has put in the work. They've studied. They've put in the discipline of saying, you know what? I know I'm good at A, B, and C, and so I'm going to outsource X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to focus on this instead of focusing on all of this. So how are you helping them get over the plateau?
Okay. Well, one thing that we always begin with is to figure out what their mission is. And most of them had a mission at the beginning. And then they got so bogged down in the day to day, they lose touch with their mission. And the losing touch with their mission might just be a lack of emotional connection with anymore, but often the business itself has strayed from the mission just because events conspired to make that happen.
Yeah.
And so realigning things makes all the difference for them. And for a lot of these folks, the only reason they're stuck on the plateau is because they've had all their energy drained. If they had their old energy level back, they wouldn't be there anymore. They'd be blasting off, they'd be upward and onward. And so reconnecting with their mission, why they're in this business, why they're doing what they're doing, can make all the difference for them.
Okay. Can you define mission? Because you said the why, but maybe is it as simple as to provide for my family, or is it much deeper than that?
It will have to be much deeper than that.
Okay.
That if you just want to provide for your family, there's jobs out there. You can get a job, and you won't have anywhere near the risk you have of having your own business. So that's not enough. You have to be interested in making some kind of mark on the world. Okay. You have to be interested in leaving your footprints in the sands of time. And that's not true for everybody. And there's no shame in that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with not wanting to leave your footprints in the sands of time.
Okay.
But if that's who you are, if that is really the core of your being, you must do that. You must be that. And this is what I tell people. If you are George Clooney, you better be George Clooney. If you're Oprah, you better be Oprah. If you're not Oprah, you don't have to be Oprah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So generally speaking, the people that I work with, they very quickly know why they are doing what they're doing, and it is way beyond feeding their family. And of course they want to do well for their family. And it's got to be more than just make a lot of money for my family, because there are people that have ruined their family life with that attitude because they never come home. They're just working. And that's not good either.
Okay. You talk about, I would really like to get deep into that energy and mission place, because I do see people, it's very, we've got this new generation of kids growing up called the millennials, and they are motivated by the project, the reason why.
Yeah.
So they will take a job that pays a lot less they'll take a job that pays a lot less because it has purpose over a job that pays a lot more. Mm-hmm. So how does a person create that mission, that reason why?
There's 4 steps to creating a mission.
Okay.
These 4 steps are dream, drive, vision, and vehicle. So let me describe what that means.
That'd be great.
Okay. You start with a dream, and a dream is anything. It's like when you dream at night, there are no rules. You can defy physics. You can fly. You can walk on water. You can do anything, right? So it starts with a dream. If only there was a way to do X, or only there was a way for people to have X or be X. That's where it all begins. Now, once you have that dream, now you can start pouring energy into it, and that's the drive. There are a lot of people that are dreamers, and that's as far as they ever go. They don't want to put any energy into it. They're just fantasizing, right?
Okay.
Now, once you start pouring energy into it, though, and you find that I've got this energy, I have the drive, I want to make this dream a reality, well, then we get to the next stage, which is vision. And I'd like to say that vision is you take a dream and you apply the laws of physics and economics and human nature. You make it something that can exist in the real world, okay? Maybe you can't walk on water, but there are things that can float on water. Maybe you can't fly without mechanical help, but there are machines that can help you do it. So you start making it real. You start making choices. You start choosing from among your options and saying, I'm going to commit to this path, at least for now, and test it out and take it as far as it can go and adjust as I need to. And then finally, you need a vehicle to make that vision real. And that vehicle might be a business, it might be a community, it might be a nonprofit, it could be any number of things. But you have to pick your vehicle that is suitable for that particular vision. And people fail there sometimes. They pick the wrong vehicle for the vision. They had the dream, they had the drive, they had the vision, and then they pick a poor vehicle.
Okay.
If you get all 4 of those together, you can turn your dream, your vision, your mission into reality.
Okay. Can this be applied to something other than info products or coaching. Do you think people can apply this to an e-commerce business, or could they apply it
Absolutely.
to software or other things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's what I mostly developed software in my life, and that's what I used for that. You could use it to becoming a musician, a professional.
Okay.
This is any band that wants to make it, they're going to have to follow the same path. It doesn't matter what it is that you're trying to do. This is the path to taking something and turning it from ambition into mission into reality.
Okay. So what you're saying is this isn't specific for people we're going to put in the internet marketing box. This is
Oh, no.
foundational. So you
Absolutely.
go through these processes, and I wrote down the words mission and energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're saying once you go through those steps and you've got that vision, then you pick the vehicle, and the vehicle could be the internet marketing. It could be something else.
Exactly. And I want to attack something here.
Sure.
Internet marketing does not have a different set of rules. Internet businesses have the same set of rules as any other business. They do not defy physics. And we sometimes we get told this that all the rules have changed. The rules have not changed. Human nature remains the same.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because all the rules that have always worked, they still work.
This has been good. It's been deep. And I like to ask the non-traditional questions. So if you're helping someone, and we'll kind of tailor this last piece. If you're helping someone get over that plateau, get the energy back, get going again. If you had to sit across, let's say put me in the seat of the listener. What would you say to me, the person that's been working at internet marketing or on their business? It could be a brick and mortar, and they're just like, man, I know there's something inside of me. There's a little bit of gas left in the tank, and I want to just give it one last hoorah or whatever it may be, so that I can really make my business work. What is that?
All right. Here's the thing that we all have to face. There are things you don't know, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and it's not the same as the things you don't know. There are certain aspects of your business, or you may feel like I'm weak. I know I'm weak, and I really have no business doing this part of it. I should get somebody to help me with that. And we all do that. We hire lawyers, we hire CPAs, for instance, unless we happen to be a lawyer or a CPA.
Yeah.
But there are other things you don't know, you don't know. And that's what we do at Vera Claritas is we help an entrepreneur uncover those things they don't know, because that is what they're running up against. Because they're running around saying, I'm doing everything. And they're doing everything they know. And it's happening in that zone outside of that. And that's what we uncover. Once we uncover that, it's usually pretty obvious. And often people will tell us what they need to do next.
Okay.
But that uncovering will not happen by continuing to do the same things you've been doing, because you would have uncovered it by now if that worked. So you gotta break the mold somehow, and we're really good at breaking the mold.
Okay. My mentor early on said, and he didn't say it to me, he said it to other people. He said, sometimes you don't know that you were lucky. Does that make sense? And
yes, absolutely.
I had businesses like that when I thought I was smart and I didn't realize I was just lucky.
Yep. Well, we are kindred spirits there.
Yes. Well, don't get me wrong. That feels really good too.
Oh yeah.
But
it's good when you recognize that that you've been blessed, right?
yeah.
But it's really not good when you go, yeah, I'm all that. No, it was just the booming economy, and you were too stupid to screw it up too bad.
Right place, right time, everything else. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if our listeners want to get unstuck, if they want to continue to grow, if they want to get that mission, that energy, and that clarity, how can they get in touch with you, and how can they follow up with you and say thank you for this interview?
Great. Well, come on over to veraclaritas.com. That's true clarity in Latin. VERACLARITAS, and just sign up for updates. You'll get there's a ton of great information there already too. So feel free to wander around in all the free stuff. And if you have an urgent need that you want to really talk now, you can hit the contact us link. We're happy to talk to anybody. And I talk to people regularly. Some of them turn into clients. Some of them don't. Some of them I don't even offer to be a client because they're not ready for us, for instance. But it doesn't mean I won't help people. So we're active on Facebook too at facebook.com/veraclaritas. So happy to talk to anybody.
Excellent. Hey, it was been a great chat today, Kenneth.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Let's end with. I'm going to end with one thing that's different that I've done with others. Tell us about the one habit that you do every day that has given you the most help for your business.
The one habit I do every day.
That could be reading a book. That could be meditating. That could be. We'll lay at that. What would that be?
I am a Nazi about email.
Okay.
My email box is empty.
Ooh, Mr. Inbox Hero.
Empty. Yes, right. And you send me a message, and I always assess, do I want to see another message from this person? And if I don't, unsubscribe now, not later, not when I'm going to get around to my email, now. And that way, I have an empty email box all the time. It's very simple for me because I just don't play.
You know what that goes back to? The first thing that you said when I said, what are your unique strengths? And you said, clarity.
Yes.
Pretty awesome, man. It was a good interview. Thank you so much.
If you liked this interview, click the subscribe button so you can get more interviews like this every single week.